Africa, the cradle of humanity, is a continent rich in history, culture, and diversity. Over centuries, many African tribes have migrated, been displaced, or assimilated into societies far from their ancestral lands. Today, we explore the fascinating stories of 10 African tribes whose descendants have settled on other continents, weaving African traditions into new cultural tapestries. Our journey begins with the Lemba, a Bantu-speaking people from southern Africa. Genetic studies reveal a striking connection between the Lemba and ancient Jewish communities. With customs like male circumcision, kosher dietary practices, and the use of the Star of David, the Lemba's origins point to ancient migrations from the Middle East. Many Lemba descendants have settled in parts of the Americas and Europe, preserving their unique blend of African and Jewish heritage. In Central America, along the coasts of Belize, Honduras, Guatemala, and Nicaragua, the Garifuna people thrive. They are descendants of West African slaves who intermingled with indigenous Caribbean communities in the 17th century. Despite being exiled from their native St. Vincent, the Garifuna retained their African rhythms, storytelling, and spirituality, which continue to flourish in their diaspora. In the Iberian Peninsula, echoes of Africa resonate through the descendants of the Moors. These North African Berbers and Arabs ruled Spain and Portugal for over 700 years. Though often portrayed as conquerors, the Moors also brought advancements in science, architecture, and art. Today, their legacy lives on in Andalusian culture, cuisine, and architecture, with descendants scattered across Europe and the Americas. In the United States, the Afro-Seminoles represent resilience and survival. Descended from runaway slaves who allied with the Seminole Native Americans in Florida, they developed a unique Creole language and culture. After enduring forced migrations, many Afro-Seminoles settled in Mexico and Texas, where their traditions still thrive. Across the Indian subcontinent, the city people carry the spirit of Africa. Brought as slaves, soldiers, and sailors by Arab traders and European colonizers, the city have lived in India and Pakistan for centuries. Their African roots are celebrated through music, dance, and religious festivals, blending seamlessly with local customs. Madagascar's people trace their ancestry to both Africa and Southeast Asia. But did you know that Malagasy communities also exist in Indonesia and Malaysia? These migrations are believed to date back over 1,000 years, highlighting the ancient maritime connections between Africa and Asia. Malagasy descendants maintain ties to their African roots through language and cultural practices. In the Middle East, the Zanj people, descendants of East African slaves, have left an indelible mark on Iraq's history. During the medieval period, the Zanj revolt showcased their struggle for freedom. Today, the Afro-Iraqi community preserves elements of African heritage in their music, dance, and oral traditions. Brazil is home to the largest African diaspora in the world, and Afro-Brazilian culture pulses with African rhythms. The Yoruba and Bantu influence is evident in samba, capoeira, and candomblé, a spiritual tradition that blends African deities with Catholic saints. Afro-Brazilian communities honor their ancestry through vibrant festivals like Carnival. In Australia, African immigrants have established thriving communities. From Sudanese and Ethiopian refugees to descendants of South Sea Islanders brought as laborers in the 19th century, African Australians contribute to the nation's cultural diversity. Traditional dances, food, and art help preserve their rich heritage. Lastly, we visit Israel, where the African Hebrew Israelites reside. This group, primarily composed of African Americans who migrated from the United States in the 20th century, believes in reclaiming their biblical heritage. They practice a vegan lifestyle, wear traditional clothing, and emphasize communal living, blending African and Hebrew traditions. These 10 tribes represent the enduring strength of African cultures, thriving far from their ancestral homelands. Despite centuries of displacement, their traditions, languages, and stories continue to inspire. Africa's spirit, it seems, knows no borders. Thank you for joining us on this journey across continents to uncover the stories of the lost African tribes. Until next time, keep exploring, learning, and celebrating the connections that unite us all.